The courthouse was silent except for the judge reading charges: armed robbery, assault with a deadly weapon, conspiracy to commit murder. The defendant sat between two U.S. Marshals, hands cuffed in front, ankles shackled. Standard security for high-risk defendants. The trial was in its second week. Conviction seemed certain, and the defendant knew exactly what that meant. At 10:37 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, during a routine sidebar conference between attorneys, the defendant made his move. He'd been compliant throughout the trial, cooperative with marshals. No indication of flight risk beyond what his charges suggested. Then, in a moment that would be analyzed frame by frame in the aftermath, everything changed. The defendant stood abruptly. His handcuffs weren't secured. Later, investigation would reveal he'd been working on the locks during testimony using a modified paperclip concealed in his sleeve. The cuffs popped open. Both marshals reacted immediately, but he was already moving. He grabbed a bailiff's pepper spray during the struggle, discharged it in a wide arc, and ran for the courtroom exit. 3 seconds. That's how long the initial chaos lasted. Then the courtroom erupted. Judges, attorneys, and court personnel reacted to the spray. Spectators moved away from the confrontation, and the defendant disappeared through the doorway into the courthouse corridor. The courthouse alarm activated within 10 seconds. Doors locked automatically. Elevators froze between floors. But the defendant had studied the building during his weeks of trial. He knew the layout. He knew the security responses. And he'd planned for exactly this moment. He ran down a service stairwell, legs still in ankle shackles that limited his speed, but didn't prevent movement. He'd anticipated that constraint. The stairwell led to a basement delivery area. Security cameras tracked him exiting through a loading dock door that should have been locked, but had been propped open by a maintenance worker's mistake. Outside, he'd pre-positioned a vehicle, a nondescript sedan parked in a visitor lot 3 days earlier, using stolen plates. The keys had been hidden under the wheel well. He reached the vehicle 4 minutes after leaving the courtroom. By the time Marshal units converged on the courthouse, he was driving away on surface streets, heading south. That direction was significant. The courthouse was 47 miles from the Mexican border. The defendant was a dual citizen. He had family connections in Mexico, and once across that border, extradition would become a years-long legal battle he might never lose. For U.S. Marshals, this wasn't just an escaped prisoner. It was a countdown to losing him entirely. Regional alert systems activated immediately. Every law enforcement agency in a 50-mile radius received notification. The fugitive's photo, vehicle description, direction of travel, and the critical detail: he was heading toward the border with a 4-minute head start and 47 miles to cover. The vehicle was equipped with a stolen temporary registration tag from a dealership in another state. It would pass casual observation, but wouldn't hold up to database checks. The plan was simple: drive normally, blend with border traffic, cross before law enforcement could establish effective checkpoints, then disappear into Mexico, where family networks could hide him indefinitely. Traffic cameras picked up the vehicle heading south on Highway 281 at 10:51 a.m. 14 minutes had passed since the courtroom escape. He was maintaining speed limits, driving in the right lane, appearing as ordinary as any vehicle heading toward the border crossing. But marshals were mobilizing ahead of his position. Coordination occurred across multiple agencies simultaneously: U.S., Marshals directed the pursuit. Local police positioned units along his probable route. Border Patrol prepared to close lanes at the international crossing. And Mexican authorities were notified that a dangerous fugitive was attempting to reach their jurisdiction. The mathematics were unforgiving. The fugitive had a head start, but Marshals had communication systems and coordination. If he maintained current speed and route, he'd reach the border in approximately 43 minutes. That timeline gave Marshals barely enough window to establish effective interdiction before he entered Mexican territory. But direct pursuit risked provoking high-speed flight through residential areas, innocent civilians, school zones, shopping centers, all potential casualties if the fugitive panicked and started driving recklessly. The decision was made to track him electronically and position units ahead rather than immediately behind his vehicle. Highway patrol aircraft took position overhead. The helicopter maintained altitude to avoid detection while tracking the sedan's progress. Ground units moved parallel on side streets, maintaining distance but closing the net. The operation required precision timing. Interdiction too soon meant road conditions where the fugitive could escape. Too late meant he'd reach the border crossing, where taking action would endanger international travelers. At 11:08 a.m., 26 minutes into the pursuit, the fugitive's vehicle entered a small border town. This was the last major population center before the international bridge. Traffic increased, stoplights created delays, and the fugitive faced a decision: continue through town on the main route, which would be slower but more predictable, or take back roads that were faster but more easily blocked. He chose back roads. The vehicle turned onto a county highway that paralleled the border. This route was less traveled but would bring him to a secondary crossing point with lighter security and faster processing. Marshals had anticipated this possibility. Units were already moving to intercept. The county highway ran through rural areas, farmland, ranch properties, scattered residences. The population density was low, but the terrain created tactical challenges. Long sight lines meant the fugitive could see pursuit vehicles from distance. Limited cross streets meant fewer opportunities for controlled interdiction, and the secondary border crossing was now only 23 miles ahead. At 11:19 a.m., 37 minutes into the pursuit, the first attempt at interdiction occurred. Sheriff's deputies established a checkpoint at a narrow bridge crossing over an irrigation canal. 2 vehicles blocked the roadway, officers positioned with weapons drawn. The fugitive approached at normal speed, then saw the checkpoint 200 yards ahead. He didn't stop. He didn't slow. He drove through a barbed wire fence into an adjacent cotton field. The sedan bounced violently across the uneven ground, tires throwing up dust. Deputies pursued, but the field was massive and the fugitive had momentum. He crashed through another fence line and regained pavement on a farm access road. The escape through the field cost him 60 seconds and added damage to his vehicle. The front bumper was destroyed. One tire was losing air, but he was mobile and back on pavement, now only 19 miles from the border. The window for stopping him was collapsing. Border Patrol mobilized maximum resources. Both the primary and secondary crossing points were placed on modified lockdown. Traffic continued flowing to avoid creating obvious barriers that would alert the fugitive, but every vehicle was being closely inspected. Officers were briefed with his photograph and vehicle description. The plan was allowing him to reach the border crossing, then stopping him before he could enter Mexican territory. But that plan carried significant risk. Border crossings processed thousands of vehicles daily, families traveling, commerce moving. International travelers. If the fugitive reached the crossing and attempted to force his way through, the situation could become a hostage scenario or mass casualty event. The preferred outcome was interdiction before arrival at 11:34 a.m. 49 minutes into the pursuit, the fugitive was 15 miles from the border. Helicopter surveillance reported the damaged sedan was smoking slightly. The blown tire had created additional mechanical stress, but the vehicle remained mobile, and the fugitive showed no signs of stopping voluntarily. Marshals coordinated a controlled vehicle interdiction strategy. Spike strips would disable the vehicle at a predetermined location with clear sight lines and minimal civilian presence. The location was selected: a straight section of highway 7 miles from the border, where the terrain prevented evasion and emergency services could respond quickly if needed. Texas Department of Public Safety troopers prepared the spike strip deployment. The device was positioned across both lanes, then withdrawn to the shoulder on a retrieval line. When the fugitive's vehicle approached, the strip would be pulled across the pavement. All 4 tires would be punctured. The vehicle would be disabled within a quarter mile. Then marshals would move in for arrest. The timing required split-second coordination. Deploy too early, and the fugitive might see the trap and find alternate routes. Deploy too late, and he'd pass the position before the strip could be pulled across the lanes. Helicopter surveillance provided real-time updates on his approach. Ground units confirmed positions and readiness. At 11:41 a.m., 56 minutes into the pursuit, the fugitive's vehicle approached the interdiction point. Helicopter reported his speed at 63 miles per hour. Distance to spike strip position: 800 yards, 700, 600. The trooper prepared to deploy. Then, the vehicle slowed abruptly. The fugitive had seen something. Perhaps an officer's silhouette. Perhaps a reflection off equipment. He stopped in the middle of the highway, 500 yards from the spike strip position. For 30 seconds, nothing moved. The sedan sat motionless. Officers maintained positions. Everyone waited. The vehicle suddenly accelerated in reverse. Tires screamed. The damaged sedan fishtailed but maintained control. The fugitive was backing away from the interdiction point at high speed. He reversed 300 yards, then spun the vehicle around, using a ranch driveway entrance. He was now heading back north, away from the border, but also away from the trap. Pursuit units that had been positioned behind him were now ahead of him. The reversal had temporarily confused the tactical arrangement, but it also meant the fugitive was moving away from his goal. Every mile north was another mile from Mexico. The clock that had been counting down to his escape was now counting up on his capture. For 6 miles, the chase continued northbound. The damaged vehicle was losing capability. Smoke increased from the engine compartment. The partially deflated tire was shredding. Speed decreased from 60 to 50 to 40 miles per hour. The sedan was failing. At 11:56 a.m., 1 hour and 11 minutes into the pursuit, the vehicle's engine seized. The fugitive coasted to the shoulder of the highway and stopped, 15 miles from the border, surrounded by law enforcement units converging from every direction. His escape attempt had failed not from lack of planning or opportunity, but from mechanical failure of a stolen vehicle that couldn't sustain the stress. Marshals approached with maximum caution. The fugitive remained in the vehicle, Commands were given through vehicle PA systems. Exit with hands visible. Lie prone on the ground. Do not make any sudden movements. For 2 minutes, he didn't respond. Then the driver's door opened slowly. He emerged with hands raised. No weapon visible. No aggressive movements. He walked backward as instructed and lay face down on the highway shoulder. Marshals moved in quickly. He was handcuffed with proper restraints. Ankle shackles were applied. He was searched thoroughly. Then he was placed in a marshal's vehicle and secured. The entire pursuit had lasted 1 hour and 19 minutes. From courthouse escape to highway apprehension, 47 miles of distance covered, multiple interdiction attempts, and ultimately, mechanical failure that prevented him from reaching the border crossing that had been his target. Investigation of his escape revealed the complexity of planning. The paperclip used to pick his handcuffs had been smuggled into the courthouse weeks earlier. The vehicle had been positioned 3 days in advance. He'd studied courthouse layouts, security responses, and escape routes. He'd researched border crossing procedures and traffic patterns. He'd maintained contacts in Mexico who would have provided sanctuary once he crossed, but he'd miscalculated one critical element: the condition of the stolen vehicle. He'd test-driven it briefly when it was stolen, but hadn't anticipated the stress of off-road driving through the cotton field or sustained high-speed operation with damaged components. The escape plan was sophisticated, but the execution vehicle failed. His courtroom escape created immediate security reviews. How had he obtained the modified paperclip? Why were his handcuffs not double-locked? What protocols failed during the sidebar conference when attention was diverted? Every element was analyzed to prevent future incidents. The courthouse maintenance worker who'd propped open the loading dock door faced disciplinary action. That single policy violation had enabled the fugitive to exit the building. Without that open door, he would have been trapped inside where recapture would have been certain and immediate. The fugitive faced additional charges beyond his original counts: escape from custody, assaulting federal officers, possession of contraband in a federal facility, vehicle theft, fleeing law enforcement. Each charge added years to what was already a substantial potential sentence. His attorney argued that the escape was driven by fear of conviction and lengthy imprisonment. The prosecution countered that the sophistication of planning demonstrated premeditation and willingness to endanger others. The judge would ultimately decide, but the additional charges virtually guaranteed he would spend decades in federal prison. The pursuit had covered portions of 3 counties. Over 40 law enforcement officers from 6 agencies had participated in tracking and interdiction efforts. Helicopter support had provided surveillance throughout, and coordination with Mexican authorities had ensured that even if he'd crossed the border, international cooperation would eventually return him to U.S. custody. But the operation succeeded because of timing. The rapid response after the courthouse alarm, the immediate coordination between agencies, the strategic positioning of units ahead of his route, and the decision to track rather than pursue directly, which prevented high-speed chase through populated areas. The border crossing had been 12 miles away when his vehicle failed, 12 miles from disappearing into Mexico, where he had family support and knowledge of territory, 12 miles from transforming a local escape into an international extradition case that could have taken years to resolve. The margin between success and failure had been measured in miles and minutes. For the family members who'd been waiting in Mexico to receive him, The operation was a profound disappointment. They'd arranged safe houses, transportation, and financial support. They'd planned to hide him in rural areas where U.S. authorities would have no jurisdiction. His capture meant those plans were wasted, and their involvement would be investigated. For law enforcement personnel who worked the case, the operation represented successful coordination under extreme time pressure. The fugitive had advantages: planning, preparation, head start. But agencies working together overcame those advantages through communication, strategy, and tactical positioning. The courthouse where the escape originated implemented enhanced security protocols, additional marshal presence during high-risk trials, mandatory double locking of all restraints, elimination of procedural gaps that had allowed the fugitive to pick his handcuffs undetected, and comprehensive review of building security, including all access points and emergency exits. The vehicle he'd stolen was recovered and processed for evidence. The paperclip was analyzed to understand how it had been modified for handcuff manipulation. The route he'd driven was documented to identify decision points and calculate how close he'd come to escaping. Media coverage focused on the dramatic courthouse escape and pursuit toward the border. News helicopters had captured portions of the chase. Footage showed the damaged sedan smoking as it fled south. The cotton field detour became iconic imagery, and the highway apprehension provided dramatic conclusion for news broadcasts. But for marshals who tracked him, the operation was less about drama and more about systematic pursuit under time pressure. Every decision calculated, every position strategic, every communication critical. The public saw a chase. Law enforcement executed a coordinated operation with lives at stake and international implications. The fugitive was returned to custody in the same courthouse where he'd escaped. Additional security measures were implemented for his subsequent appearances. He entered guilty pleas on several charges, avoiding trial, but still facing mandatory minimum sentences exceeding 30 years. His escape attempt had lasted less than 90 minutes, but would cost him decades. For the border region where the pursuit occurred, the incident became a reminder of geography's role in criminal justice. Proximity to international boundaries created unique escape opportunities. Fugitives with resources and connections could reach Mexico in under an hour from many locations. That reality required constant coordination between U.S. and Mexican authorities. The secondary border crossing where he'd been heading implemented enhanced security briefings. Officers received updated training on fugitive interdiction. Vehicle inspection protocols were reviewed, and communication systems with U.S. law enforcement were strengthened to ensure rapid information sharing during pursuit situations. For citizens who lived along the pursuit route, the incident created temporary disruption, traffic delays, law enforcement presence, helicopter noise, but also reassurance that dangerous fugitives wouldn't be allowed to escape simply because they reached a border. The coordination demonstrated that jurisdiction might end at international boundaries, but pursuit didn't. The cotton field where he'd driven through fences became part of local lore. The farmer whose property was damaged received compensation from asset seizure funds. The damaged fences were repaired, and tour guides in the area began pointing out the location to visitors as the place where a courthouse escapee had tried and failed to reach Mexico. For family members of his original victims, the escape and recapture brought mixed emotions: satisfaction that he hadn't successfully fled, frustration that security lapses had allowed the attempt, and anxiety about whether future court appearances might provide additional escape opportunities. Those concerns were addressed through enhanced security measures, but the trauma of watching him temporarily escape remained. The courtroom bailiff who'd had pepper spray taken during the escape received medical treatment and psychological counseling. The brief moment when security was compromised created lasting impact. Additional training was provided to all courtroom security personnel on weapon retention and rapid response during escape attempts. For U.S. Marshal Service leadership, the case became a teaching scenario. The escape itself represented security failure, but the pursuit response demonstrated effective coordination. Both aspects were studied, documented, and integrated into training programs for deputies nationwide. The fugitive spent his first weeks back in custody in administrative segregation, high security monitoring, no contact with other inmates, psychological evaluation to assess ongoing flight risk. Eventually, he was transferred to a maximum security federal prison, far from any international borders, where he would serve his sentence with minimal possibility of escape opportunity. The stolen vehicle that failed him was eventually crushed and recycled. The paperclip that picked his handcuffs was preserved as evidence and training material. The courthouse security footage became required viewing for new Marshal deputies. Every element of the escape and pursuit was preserved, analyzed, and converted into lessons that would improve future responses. For the judge who'd been presiding over his trial, the escape represented a profound violation of courtroom sanctity. The judicial process depended on security and order. When defendants escaped, it undermined public confidence in the system's ability to deliver justice. The judge issued statements emphasizing that while security lapses occurred, the system ultimately functioned by recapturing the fugitive before he could flee U.S. jurisdiction. Border communities continued their daily routines. Thousands of legitimate travelers crossed between the United States and Mexico every day. Commerce flowed. Families visited relatives. Tourism sustained local economies. The pursuit of one fugitive was an aberration in the normal flow of international movement. But for law enforcement personnel who worked that Tuesday morning when a defendant fled a courtroom and raced toward Mexico, the operation was a reminder of how quickly situations could escalate and how close fugitives could come to escaping justice. 12 miles from the border, when his vehicle failed, 1 hour and 19 minutes of freedom, and decades of imprisonment that would follow, because agencies worked together to stop him before he crossed that international line.